And welcome to another episode of the Spartan Spotlight podcast. I'm Justin Thin. Today, I'm joined by the man himself, Carter Elliott of Sleepers Media, one of the best follows, not just for basketball, but pretty much everything. Just a generally good follow. One of the best music connoisseurs I know. Has some questionable takes about the Eagles, but we'll leave those offline. Carter, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. That Spartan Spotlight intro with speaking of music connoisseur, that was a very, very well put together intro. That has me ready to run through a green and white wall right now. So it's always good talking with you, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Shout out to Owen Osust of I think today now he works for one of like the Lansing TV affiliates, but put that together. Obviously with the T Grizzly D to the A instrumental. I know you know, but for those that don't know, there you go. Carter, your Lions play in a couple hours. This is being recorded Sunday night. How you feeling? How are the vibes?
I feel like the fan of one of the best teams in the NFL, and that feels really good to say. I'm ready for the CJ Stroud smoke. Nico Collins is inactive. He's ducking smoke. I don't care what anybody says. But yeah, I'm very excited for it. It's a good time to be a Lions fan after years of agony, pain, and any other negative adjective you could think of.
Yeah, we will root for Tank Dell. 70 plus yards, maybe, possibly, if that's what I lock in. But other than that, yeah, I think you guys should pull it out. So, Carter, been a good couple weeks, or I should say a week of basketball, and then some exhibition games before that where people were making some assumptions, some that were founded, some that were not. What have you seen, just generally speaking, from college basketball the first couple weeks that has you excited? That maybe is a storyline or just a team that you're going to be wanting to watch going forward.
Oh man, there's a good amount to choose from. I think I'm gonna keep this one Big Ten centric, just given obviously our Spartans, and because I do lean into Big Ten basketball a little bit more than others, though I do watch a lot. This conference is way more open than I thought it was coming into this season. Like coming into this season, I was like, oh, Illinois is gonna be really good. They got talent, which they do, and they are a good basketball team. And Indiana does a lot of great work in the transfer portal. They got talent. They got some things to work out. There's so many more question marks, I think, with the conference than I knew coming in. And that gets me excited as a Michigan State fan because I think the opportunity is there for the taking if this team wants to reach whatever ceiling they may have. I think it's a wide open Big Ten that anybody can win. And Michigan State falls into that anybody category. And also, I think that we're going to have to give like a little bit more time to the season to really see what these teams are about because there's some fraud alerts that I'm flagging right now that I will be circling back on later in the season. But it's going to be a really exciting and a great college basketball season. And as a Michigan State fan, I'm a little bit more optimistic than I was coming in, even though it's early on 2 games.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that you touched on is anybody can win the conference. But one of the things I've seen, which maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but even teams towards the bottom, like there's not, I mean, I guess Minnesota, I think they got hit from the portal as bad as it can get this past offseason and things like that nature. But like, even if like I was watching Penn State a couple nights ago, my dad's an alum, so I keep some like wandering eye on them. They had a great couple games of back-to-back 100-point games against obviously nobody substantial, but that's the first time they've done that in school history. And they got some guys from the portal that they coupled with some of the guys that Mike Rose brought there last year. So like teams like that, like I don't think this year in the Big Ten, like other than maybe Minnesota, you're just going to go over there and kind of have a win. And maybe in years past, there might've been like 3-4 teams kind of that nature. And feels weird to say that in an 18-team year, but is that kind of the assessment you have of even the depth in the bottom half? Beyond just the fact that anybody can win it?
Yeah, I would say so. Especially, well, you think about that coming into like the season. Obviously, the new teams are in the fold, so you're like, oh, it's going to be a little bit more talent added in these Pac-12 teams. But to your point, I'm even going down like Iowa, who people thought like Frank McCaffrey might have a foot out the door. They got all this young talent and they got family on their side, and they're just making all these plays. Northwestern was able to get some pieces. They actually look good, even though they dropped the game to Dayton. They should have won that game. They're not fully healthy. Ohio State with a big win against Texas. And Michigan State, sorry, not Michigan. Michigan dropped one to Wake Forest, which, thank you. But they put up 100 points against teams before that. And like Dusty's got some guys and they got some size and some shooting ability. So there's a lot of storylines of the Big Ten, a lot of good teams, good players. And it's a lot more open, which I think will be exciting and good for the league that people like to pick on because all I got to hear about year after year is, oh, the Big Ten, they don't perform. They don't do this, that, and the third. No one's saying that about the Big East this year, who looks very, very smelly. But it's always fun to pick on the Big Ten for some reason. But the league's looking fairly healthy right now.
Yeah. So Carter, like with the Big Ten not really having a wagon though, like past years, and like you said, the Big East not. I mean, UConn's always going to be UConn. We'll see. I don't know if they win 3 in a row, and beyond that, I don't know kind of how like Butler's not looking good. Villanova's probably not making a tournament. End of the Cal Neptune era there, but like SEC, like Alabama's going to be very good, but like Tennessee, I don't necessarily know if I believe in them just yet. Auburn had that great win against Houston, but like I don't know, like nationally speaking, like is this as open as it's felt national title picture wise in a couple of years? Or is that me just reaching to conclusions 2 games into the season, trying to look for parity and kind of just make it seem like that's the case?
So I think the interesting part about it is that some of the most talented teams are teams that haven't reached the mountaintop yet. Like we're all Nate Oates fans, at least I'm speaking for him. Nate Oates' run last year was great. Alabama has one of the more talented teams in the country. I don't know if you'll find a better 1 through 12. They reached the Final Four, but they haven't reached the mountaintop. Bill Self obviously has reached that point, but like there's question marks with his team. Like I can in past years, I would go 1 through 5 and I would have to kind of scrap for questions. Now I think there's some more obvious questions about these teams that are even really, really talented, which I think is going to make for a really good college basketball season, because obviously our next opponent, Kansas, is one of the title favorites. In that game against UNC, I came away with a lot of questions about Kansas, even though they won that game at home. And I think that might be a theme with a lot of the teams. Even Alabama, who I just spoke glowingly about, was in a fight with an Arkansas State team who's no cupcake, but it's Arkansas State. So there's a lot to be discovered about this college basketball season.
Yeah, definitely. And in years past, like even when I thought like, oh, this team's going to be like really good, really hard to stop, like they don't necessarily win, but like you sit here with a little more confidence in years past. Like again, like I love the Alabama team you brought up. Like one of the only 2 future plays I've made in college basketball is Mark Sears Wooden Award, and then the other one is Houston national title. And like you said, Alabama like against Arkansas State, like iffy, and then Houston lost to an Auburn team that's very good, but like they didn't look like a wagon necessarily. So like, and then Kansas, like Hunter Dickinson had the box score from last game. Hunter Dickinson was the only player in their starting lineup that had more than 4 rebounds. And the only other guy on their team that had more than 4 rebounds was Flory Badunga, and they don't really play together. So like, where's the rebounding coming from? And if you're going to go ahead and give up 89 points, I don't necessarily know what that says about the defense, but I get like North Carolina's good and things of that nature. So nationally speaking, no buzzsaw for the most part, it seems like, but a lot of quality teams, a lot of people worth watching, but questions remain. In terms of Michigan State, you said, and I agree with this, that you feel a little more optimistic now than before the season started. We'll, I'm sure, have a couple different reasons, but what is the number one biggest reason that you feel that way?
You know what? I'm not going to take the easy cop out and say the rest of the Big Ten. I'm going to say I actually think that this Michigan State team has more guys than I gave them credit for. And I've made a habit, for anyone who watches my stuff on Sleepers Media, I made a habit of every chance that I get in front of a microphone and a camera, I repent for my comments about what Jace Richardson would have been coming to Michigan State. That kid is incredible. That kid's a guy. Like, not just a piece. He's a guy. Like a Michigan State staple piece, like future of the program type of guy. Like, he's that good, I think. And every time he stepped on the floor so far for Michigan State, whether it be in Spain, exhibition games, these 2 early season games, impactful, winning, making plays, doing things. He's going to be a really good player. And then you're having other guys come on. Like, I think coming into the season, there was so much hinging on what Fears and Booker do, right? And what Akins does at the 2 spot and what Fiddler does as the transfer. Right. And now we got to a point where, like, last game in particular, Michigan State's bench was the one that fueled everything. Jackson Kohler, 20 and 13 off the bench. Cohen Carr doing his thing with the dunks and getting out and running and being aggressive and doing what he does. Jace Richardson, once again, coming off the bench, being impactful, making plays. I think that I had major questions about the talent and the depth on this Michigan State team coming into this season, and I think it has more than I gave it credit for.
Yeah, makes sense for sure. For me personally, my biggest issue was, all right, they're probably not going to be amazing in transition. I know they would run more than they would with AJ, but they're going to probably still be very half-court reliant, and I don't trust the half-court outside of Frankie Fiddler. Well, first of all, I get they weren't playing anybody very good, but man, this team can run. Like not even just the Cohen Carr alley-oops, not even the Akins hammers. Like they're just good at just getting down the court 1 through 5. Like Kohler, you say what you will about kind of his athleticism and his height and whatnot, but he plays hard. He runs, he fills the lane. Guys find the corners. Booker's kind of the only guy that in transition maybe needs to fine tune a little bit of the decision making and stuff like that. But like 1 through 5, these guys can run. Obviously, that's not going to happen in the Big Ten to the same degree. But like when you have so many guys that are options like Jace Richardson, a little bit of that stress is kind of alleviated for me as well. Like maybe in an Elite Eight game, it might kill them to not have a guy like a Frankie Fiddler go ahead and really go and get you 22 on a given night and go crazy with some hero ball. But like if you're playing against Nebraska or a Northwestern and you need to get that 11th and 12th win and maybe get a 5 seed, like who says this is not a blueprint that is replicable to have a decent amount of success going into the offseason? In this half court specifically, though, are you at all worried so far with what you've seen from like a Fiddler, from a Booker, or you think it's just small sample size and they maybe could one day go and get you 16 or 17 against like a high major team?
I actually am pretty worried about it, but I think some of the things are actually fixable, mainly with Fiddler for me. Frankie was such a tough shot taker and maker at Omaha because of his role and because like that's what he needed to do for that basketball team. And it worked, right? And maybe Izzo brought him in for that role with Michigan State's team. And honestly, there are going to be some games where we're going to need him to do that. But more specifically in these first 2 games, I thought there's kind of been like some opportunities that he could be a spot-up shooter. Like we have this great passer in Jeremy Fears who can make things easy for him. And he doesn't always have to go dribble and go to, and kind of, do the mismatch thing. I think he could have a couple more opportunities as a spot-up shooter. And then Xavier Booker, for me, it'd be beneficial to Michigan State for him to do other things because right now, if he's not making shots, then he's not really giving the team anything else. And that makes it hard for Coach Izzo to give him an opportunity and play him because, there's you're not going to hit shots in basketball. Not everyone hits every single shot, but it gives your coach some confidence to leave you out there if you can do some other things. If you're rebounding, if, not to go like player versus player here, but if Jackson Kohler's shots aren't falling, I feel like Izzo's going to play him because Jackson Kohler's going to play literally till the wheels fall off while he's on the court. And that makes up for any fact that he can't jump over a phone book or whatever it is. I love you, Jackson. That makes up for the fact that he can't do that. So I think there's some tweaks on maybe roles and how players can operate within this offense. But if I'm a player like Frankie Fiddler, I was fighting for my life at Omaha to get easy shots. And I would maybe take a step back and be a spot-up shooter sometimes. And I think that could help him too because he can do the whole one-on-one thing and go get a bucket when we need him to, but it'd be nice for him to just get some easy shots. See him go in. He loves getting to the free throw line. Another easy shot is just Fears kicking out to him and just taking up the open shots. Like the last couple of games, I thought he did a little bit of like hesitating to go dribble into a tougher shot is all I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. But it is good to see that he's not necessarily dying to force the same volume that he did at Omaha. He's not over here like, oh, guys, I'm making an X amount of money. They brought me in here to be the guy. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to take 17 shots and try to get the same output I did. Seems like he's fitting in systematically okay. It's just he hasn't had to be assertive, and he's not really necessarily going out of his way to mess up the flow of the offense to be assertive. So that's good to see. But I definitely agree. Why not just go ahead and be a spot up shooter kind of off of a pick and pop here and there and stuff like that? Like there's no, I think he can do it because like you said, he's used to being the high quality shot taker and he's used to getting to the line. So it can come. But I think at the end of the day, like, as you said, they have more guys. So if you're looking at a game where maybe Akins isn't going off and maybe you bring out the 3-guard lineup with like a Fears and a Holloman, a Jace Richardson, maybe if Booker's not going off, you roll with Carr and you just run and you have Kohler at the 5 and that's what you go. It's like they have more options now than even before the season. And as you know, like I wasn't the biggest, fan of having high hopes this year in Cohen Carr in the half court. But what we saw in game 1, like he's not just there making dunks in transition. Like he's able to put the ball in the court, get to the basket a little bit and run in transition. So I think at the end of the day, they have more pieces. Now it'll just be about consistency, making sure they're playing the right lineups. Ideally no more of the 2 big men kind of thing, but I guess focusing a little bit on the bigs. to what extent should people be excited about what we've seen from Jackson Kohler yet?
I think honestly we should be extremely excited. One, just for the people who love like the feel good stories, like Jackson's just had some bad luck. You know what I'm saying? Like he hurt his foot. He's had some bad luck. Hasn't necessarily had the opportunity. He's been a scapegoat at times. People want to always point out Jackson's shortcomings, I guess, but they don't ever really point out what he does extremely well. And that's one, he plays the game really hard and he has a little bit of an offensive bag. And, he's able to give us something that the other centers on the team don't necessarily give us, right? Like,
right.
There's not really a guy on this team that we can throw the ball into the post and say, go get us a bucket. And Michigan State's MO and Tom Izzo loves to have post players that you can throw in there and go get them a bucket or go score off the pick and roll. And Jackson can be that. And the thing that gives me a little bit of, I guess, good feeling about the center rotation, like with Jackson Kohler, is that, even a guy who I wasn't necessarily as high on coming into the season, Zapala, you can't teach the size that he has. And he gives something that other centers on this roster don't give, right? And he also has 5 fouls. So play that man. He can be that big presence down low. Anything he gives you, like offensively or anything, is a plus at that point. But you can't teach the size that he has, and he has something that other centers on the roster don't have, which, to me is having me feel more positive about what I thought about the front court coming into the season, right? Because let's say he starts Booker and Zapala. The natural rotation would be like, okay, now maybe we go Kohler, Carr. Like those two fit together. Booker, Zapala fit together. And there's kinks and rotations that could be worked out there that I think would work in making this Michigan State basketball team reach their ceiling.
Definitely, for sure. And I think the biggest thing is like all three of these centers, I know we'd like to kind of see it dwindle down to 2 or at least mostly 2, but like they all play hard. Like, at this level, that's not necessarily always the case. I know fans would think, oh, Division I athletes, of course they're going to play hard. I mean, we saw a center that, not to like, I guess, put him down, but like Marcus Bingham probably had more refinement and talent than any of the 3 guys on this team, but there were questions about his motor, even going into his senior year. So like, that like whatever's going down, like maybe these guys might not be able to bring down the rebounds, but like they're always fighting going up against the glass. And sometimes, especially against smaller teams, that can make the difference. And I think in the Big Ten, like there is no Hunter Dickinson anymore. Like there is no Zach Edey. Like there's no Kofi Coburn. Like there's like these guys like there's no reason they shouldn't be able to compete on a night in, night out basis. For the most part, I'm sure they're running into a couple guys here and there. I know Michigan has a couple bigs, but it doesn't look like they've been playing well together necessarily, at least not today. I guess one thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is very, very half-baked. I wouldn't call it a take. I'd say it's something I'm monitoring. It's an observation that I'm soft launching, something to monitor. The Big Ten, actually, no, I'll say nationally, the transfer portal, like big heavy bag guys like the Umar Balos, the Cade Tysons, the Coleman Hawkins, like these kind of guys that are making like multiple millions of dollars. And then that's one side of the bucket of this coin that I was going to say. Then the other side of the coin is the freshmen, the Cooper Flag, not even just the Cooper Flags and the guys at Rutgers, but like, let's even talk about like the Con Knipples. Like, let's even go further down, like Jace Richardson compared to Frankie Fiddler. The dichotomy I'm trying to set up is the narrative that we're going to see throughout the year that maybe the transfer portal has become a little overvalued in terms of it being a savior dynamic of, oh, you just go get this one piece for $2 million, suddenly you're back on track. Obviously, it's not something that you should run away from. I think every team should at least take 2 transfers, maybe more, depending on their situation. But has it become a little overvalued? And is that a narrative that maybe might be prevalent throughout the year compared to high school recruiting?
I think it's a valid point. I mean, for anyone who watched that Indiana and Eastern Illinois game that happened early on today, I found myself watching that first half, and I'm looking at Ballo, and I'm looking at Renew, and I'm looking at Mbako, I'm looking at all these high dollar value guys, and they looked like they were going through the motions. Like they looked like they looked like they were cashing checks. Like I watched the UNC and Kansas game. RJ Davis reportedly got like $2 million to come back, which I'm not pocket watching or anything like that. That dude is a National Player of the Year candidate. He should go get his bucks. All these college guys should go get their bucks. I don't blame them whatsoever. But there was also a moment in that game where I was like, that guy looks like he's checked out. Yeah. And it's okay because his checks are going to cash either way.
Yeah.
There is that kind of, I guess, dynamic in the game today with those type of players. And that's why, it takes a special coach. It takes a really good coach to find the happy medium there, right?
Yeah.
Like Dan Hurley, I think, is one of the best coaches of college basketball right now.
Yeah.
He does an incredible job of the guys that he has in the transfer portal are a good mix between like, I'm gonna buy the high value guys. I'm gonna go get these high value freshmen. But I'll tell you right now, nothing comes before the UConn on the front of the jersey. Like, ever. And he's not gonna he will lose a player like a Umar Ballo if it comes before what's on the front of the jersey. And it's something that these teams have to work through. And it is something I think you're going to see moving forward that, is $2 million on one player going to be that great of an investment or save your program? I mean, JT, we know this about, this more specifically about football. Michigan's out here trying to buy a quarterback for millions and millions of dollars. Is that really going to change the trajectory of your program? Or are you just going to spend $8 million on a high school kid? That's crazy.
Right. Definitely. And I think the biggest way that you kind of see it is like these examples, like we said, like with the Umar Ballas of the world, but like also to kind of make sure that people don't think I'm just over here, like maybe defending Izzo for not getting a big time center this year. I do want to say, like, you need transfers. Ideally, Michigan State would have done a little more, unless Jackson Kohler just goes off and becomes a 26-minute per game guy.
No, we're not doing that. They should have done more. They should have done more.
Okay, yeah, all right. But my point was, even the guys in the portal, like a Mark Sears, like multiple years now at Alabama, right? Like you're getting guys like with eligibility, like they're still growing into your program for multiple years. This 1-year rental situation is kind of where I'm just thinking like $2 million for a guy that's 23 years old that is just coming in for 1 year. That was kind of the dichotomy I was trying to put against the 5-star. So I just wanted to clarify the picture.
Oh, no. You're onto something there, because I actually have a full-blown theory that I bring up all the time. There's no better transfer than a year 2 up transfer. Like we even see that with Michigan. Tyson Walker in year 2 was so much better than he was in year 1. Mark Sears even had his struggles with Bama. He was so much better in year 2.
Yeah.
K. Tyson has struggled with UNC. I would bet any money that K. Tyson next year is going to be a really good basketball player. The up transfers, the Auburn game, Denver Jones, year 2 up transfer. When guys transfer up, get into higher programs, there's an adjustment period. There's like something that they got to get adjusted to it. Frankie Fiddler, I know it's a 1-year rental. If we could get 2 years of Frankie Fiddler, he would be incredible next season, because it takes getting used to.
Yeah, that's a great discussion there. It is time to talk about Michigan State versus Kansas. I will ask you this. Before the season started, so I guess like 10 days ago, what % chance would you have given Michigan State to win this game? And what % chance would you give them now? I guess that's unfair. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that is. I don't know if you want to answer that. But I guess let me put it at, how optimistic were you on a scale of 1 to 10 before the season started? And how optimistic are you today on a scale of 1 to 10?
Okay, well, easy question for me. It was a 0 before the season started. 0. 0 as 0 gets. And I'm sorry, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It's a lot higher now. It's a lot higher now. I'll tell you that, because obviously this Kansas team is extremely talented. And in watching them, I'm extremely impressed with the fact that they're able to bring players like Zeke Mayo and AJ Storr off the bench. And Flory Badunga is their backup center. I would kill for Flory Badunga. Yeah. That man played 11 minutes and he had 8 and 8, and he doesn't even know how to play basketball.
Yeah,
like that dude's gonna be so good just running, playing hard. But I look at, like, when you're a team that's an underdog in basketball, you need to try to find areas that you can basically attack the other team. And I think there are clear areas that you can attack this Kansas team. Mainly putting Hunter Dickinson in a pick and roll every single possession is something that I think would be a great benefit to Michigan State. Now, are we going to see that? Obviously, we know Coach Izzo and the staff, they love their floppy sets. They love half court, pass sets. I think some pick and rolls could be very advantageous to them. Maybe a player like Jace Richardson, or maybe a player like Jay Nakin's coming off a pick and roll, and Hunter Dickinson is playing drop coverage, and you take advantage of that. I think there is that there. And then with the great point guard play they have in DeJuan Harris, I look at the UNC game. They were rolling. They were playing incredible basketball. They look like one of the best teams in the country. DeJuan Harris picks up 4 fouls. Head of the snake falls off. things go awry. They're fouling. They're not feeling good about themselves. Like everything kind of just, it sort of fell apart. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like cancel out Dewan, it works. Cancel out Hunter Dickinson, put him in pick and rolls, we're going to win this game.
Right.
But there is way more of an opportunity for Michigan State here than I think they had early preseason, I guess I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you go with that second lineup, right, and I'm assuming it'll be a quicker switch for Michigan State than it would be for Kansas, and Dickinson will still be out there. Like, you're looking at an opportunity with Carr at the 4, Kohler at the 5, that shoot, like Hunter Dickinson in the half court might cook on Jackson Kohler a bit, but I don't see him running up and down in the fast break like Michigan State could do, like we've seen him do the last couple of games. Like, there's an opportunity there to overcommit and like really, really double down on just running some more, at least when Dickinson's on the court. I don't know, maybe that's lazy analysis, like have the 7-foot guy that plays 30 minutes a game, try to tire him out. But I think that's an opportunity that I see. At the end of the day, Michigan State's gonna have to make more shots than they've been making, especially from the 3-point line. I think it starts there.
But you take more too.
Yeah, that's true. That's always been their issue. Even a couple years ago, when they were making threes at a high rate, they weren't taking them enough. And we were sitting there in March saying, like, you got to take like 26 threes tomorrow against Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament to have a chance and stuff like that. Like, I specifically remember that. But I think one of the things you mentioned, like a Jace Richardson playing a role in this game, he has not only just looked good in terms of like the box score, he looks good when you watch him make decisions with the ball in his hand. And that's the biggest difference between maybe somebody that can play early as a freshman versus somebody that can't. Unless you're like a knockdown shooter that's shooting 40% from 3, you have to have that composure with the ball in your hands. And we also have seen a little bit of an upgrade from that with Jaden Akins. Like, he's not necessarily going to be crossing guys up in the half court, creating a shot all the time, but he hasn't really forced as many bad long contested twos. The couple of long twos he's taken, he's kind of made. So I think there's been an improvement there in the shot selection, but I think there does need to be more aggressiveness in terms of the 3-point line. I think they do need to try to run more than they have. What do you think about Kansas in terms of their split between the first half and second half? Was it pretty much just Harris? Like, because I was half watching that game and I saw Kansas like running North Carolina off the court. And then suddenly I'm watching the second half and I'm thinking, oh, my RJ Davis 20+ points bet might hit given how this is going. But dude decided to shoot 3 for 15. So that wasn't the case. But like, what was the dichotomy there? Was it just Harris?
Well, a good portion of it was Harris. And also, I'll say, like, this was a classic. If you look at the box score of Hunter Dickinson in this game, you're like 20, 10, low turnovers. Everything was good. I think he had like 3 assists too. But if you watch the second half, he was missing layups. He was fouling on the defensive end. Now, I will admit, I'll give Kansas a little bit of a break here. They were getting a tough whistle in that second half. I mean, UNC shot so many free throws, and they made all their free throws to their credit. But there just seemed to be like a little bit of complacency, a little bit of Dewan Harris gets foul trouble. Also, like, they were a little bit more worried about the stripes than they were about the actual game. And all of a sudden they find themselves, and, you know, it was Hunter Dickinson maybe misses a short hook or a layup on the other end. And then the role players for UNC are hitting shots on the other end, which if I'm a Michigan State player, like, the UNC role players stepped up in that game and they had a chance to win that one. Even with RJ Davis going 3 for 19 or whatever he was, other guys stepped up. So like this Kansas team is not invincible, right? Like there's a path there if guys play well, and if there's a game plan that's executed, I think that you can find yourself with a chance to win the game. Obviously, Michigan State has nothing to lose in this one. That's one thing. This is house money. Everyone thinks we're going to lose. So like, go out there, play free, make some plays, and you know what? It'd be nice to just see a guy have a moment, like a classic Champions Classic moment where they knock off Kansas. How great would that feel?
Yeah. And one thing that, like, I know, like, it looks worse than this on the surface, but Michigan State in the Champions Classic, I think, is 2-2 against Kansas, and I believe 2-2 against Kentucky. All the losses seem to come against Duke. And I guess it's been a couple years since they beat Kansas. I think it might be on a little bit of a streak there, but Michigan State competes in these games for the most part if you remove the Duke component of it. And for the most part, like, early in the season, even if like there's a bigger gap between Michigan State and Kansas towards the end of the year, guys are still figuring out their roles, especially a team like Kansas that has like 5 newcomers, I think, maybe more. So like, you're looking at a situation here where you might just kind of be ready sooner. Will you have more continuity a bit? You might have more guys that are ready to step up just now. But I think for me, Carter, I like you said, like this is house money. Michigan State can either go out there, beat the number one team in the country and feel good about it, or if they lose, like it's not the end of the world. But I want to ask you, what would happen that would maybe be alarming or disappointing to you? What is the way that this would go where you're sitting there thinking, all right, like I get it was okay that Michigan State could lose this game, but like I really didn't want to see this take place?
Ooh, I think it's a cop-out. It's an easy answer, but like if there is a moment where they're getting ran off the floor and there's no type of fight back, like they let it get to 20, things aren't going well, and they let it spiral and ends up like 30, that would concern me because looking across college basketball, Baylor got dog walked by like 80 points. I know I'm exaggerating against Gonzaga, but I saw a lot about that Baylor team being able to come back and win against Arkansas. Like I thought them showing up and showing some fight said a lot about that team. So I think that for me, I'd be most disappointed if they lose this basketball game while also crumbling in the face of adversity. Yeah. I'd like to see them at least, if that does hit them, let's see what they do. Because you find out about a team once things aren't going well,
Yeah, great point for sure. I think that's my answer as well. But I'd also like to see maybe not as much lineup tinkering in terms of stuff that you may know doesn't work.
You might as well let that go, JT. You're going to see that. Life's a lot easier when you just accept that's what this is. That's what we signed up for.
Yeah, that's true. But I think at the end of the day, we're going into this game with enough reason to hope to at least see something promising, not even if it's to win a game. And I agree, like before the season started, I was like, man, we just got to get past this game, not let it kind of really break the team and then like go 7-1 or something. But like now I'm like, all right, let's really see something here. Any more thoughts that you have either on this game, anything on college basketball? I don't know if you want to give a prediction. Probably not. But
you know what? I love giving a good prediction. I got a prediction for you here.
Okay.
It ain't Michigan State winning. I'm sorry, folks. Like I got to be real with you, but I got Kansas 75, Michigan State 72. It's gonna be a one-score game. It's gonna be close. We're gonna have a chance to win it, and it's gonna be a scary last possession by us where we can't figure out who wants to take a three to tie the game, and it's gonna be an awful shot. But we're gonna end up losing 75-72. But it's gonna be a close game. We're gonna be in it, and I think I can feel safe about saying that.
There you go. I'll go ahead and place the correct score bet of 75-72 Kansas on FanDuel and see how that goes. I take back the FanDuel part, not sponsored, no free advertisement. I think we're on the same page with this team, Carter. I think we're on the same page with this game. Always great talking to you. I don't know what I necessarily want to plug, but I'll definitely say like Sleepers Media. I don't know anyone that's doing like as much consistent, recurring, like daily content on all things college basketball. If you're someone like me that doesn't necessarily watch every single game, but you want to stay up to date on what the team narratives are, how teams are progressing, which way they're trending, I definitely would bump Carter, Greg, and the guys over there. And obviously Carter's Twitter, like I said. Anything else you want to bump, Carter? Anything else? Any final words?
No, I appreciate you having me on. I'm always down to come on and chop it up with you. I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, if anyone's out there looking for college basketball content, there's no shortage over on Sleepers Media YouTube channel. We got everything. We talk about all the teams nationally. I watch a lot of college basketball and sit in front of this here camera a lot and talk about it. So, I might not always be right, but I do have a good feeling I know what I'm talking about most of the time. And we got a lot of stuff over on our YouTube channel if you want to go check it out.
For sure. And I'll say you're right more often than not. We hit some parlays last week, and I'll hit stuff after this for a Gonzaga same game parlay against Arizona State. We'll see how that goes. But Carter, appreciate your time. Appreciate everyone for joining, and we'll be back in eventually soon. I would think. No exact date yet, but I'll probably want to do like a MSU season review for football with Stephen Brooks here in a couple weeks after the end of the season. I personally think Michigan State goes 7-5 and wins the next three here. I'm feeling relatively confident about that, but I'm sure people can clip this up and call me out for it afterwards. But I think that's going to be the next episode. And with that, appreciate everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.